Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranjana Jaya Prajajanaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhav ki, Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai ki, Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Srila Gurudeva ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. So we welcome all devotees to read from Srimad Bhagavatam today. We will look at the third canto, chapter 9, text 26. Maitriya Uvacha Swasambhavam Nishamyaivam Tapo Vidya Samadhibihi Yavan Manovacha Stutva Virarama Sakinnava. Maitriya Uvacha Swasambhavam Nishamyevam Tapo Vidya Samadhibihi Yavan Manovacha Stutva Virarama Sakinnava. Maitriya Uvacha Swasambhavam Nishamyevam Tapo Vidya Samadhibihi Yavan Manovacha Stutva Virarama Sakinnava. Prabhus. Mataji's? Tapo vidya samadhibihi yavan manovachastudva virarama sakhinnava swasambhavam nishamyevam tapo vidya samadhibihi yavan manovachastudva virarama sakhinnava. Please read the synonyms. Maitreya Uvacha. The great sage Maitreya said, Swasambhavam, the source of his appearance, Nishamya, by seeing, Evam, thus, Tapaha, penance, Vidya, knowledge, Samadhibihi, as also by concentration of the mind, Yavat, as far as possible, Manaha, mind, Vachaha, words, Stutva, having prayed, Virarama, became silent, Saha, he, Brahma, Kinnavat, as if tired. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Please repeat the translation. The sage Maitreya said, O Vidura, after observing the source of his appearance, namely the personality of Godhead, Brahma prayed for his mercy as far as his mind and words would permit him. Thus, having prayed, he became silent, as if tired from his activities of penance, knowledge, and mental concentration. Please hear the purport. Brahma's enlightenment in knowledge was due to the Lord sitting within his heart. After being created, Brahma could not ascertain the source of his appearance. But after penance and mental concentration, he could see the source of his birth, and thus he became enlightened through his heart. The spiritual master outside and the spiritual master within are both representations of the Lord. Unless one has contact with such bona fide representations, one cannot claim to be a spiritual master. Lord Brahma had no opportunity to take the help of a spiritual master from outside, because at that time, Brahma himself was the only creature in the universe. Therefore, on becoming satisfied by the prayers of Brahma, the Lord enlightened him about everything from within. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabho Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in this verse, we hear of Brahma becoming silent and tired because he has prayed so much. Bhagavatam is so alive that it brings out so many practical things. It shows us how fallible Brahma is. The Supreme Personality of Godhead never gets tired. But even a great personality like Brahma, despite all his powers and so much of austerity and penance and knowledge, it is possible for Brahma to become tired. So how much possible it is for us to become tired? It is quite natural, you see. But then the important thing in this verse is that Brahma has finished his prayers. This verse marks the beginning of the point where Brahma has finished his prayers, and now Maitreya is saying how Brahma feels, and Maitreya will now speak about how and what Krishna will reply. In Bhagavatam, the prayers of the devotees are very important, and particularly after the prayers, what the Lord replies to the prayers are also very important. So when we are studying Bhagavatam, we should be very careful to see the prayers, and then after that we should be very careful to study how the Lord responded to the prayers. That is very important. And if there are many prayers in Bhagavatam, then you will find that there will be some seed verses within the prayers. Seed verses means there may be 3 or 4 very important parts of the prayers where the devotee is crystallizing what they are saying. And that very often happens in the last few verses towards the end of the prayers. And here you can see that Brahma, in the last 4 verses that he speaks, Brahma's prayers, all his prayers, beginning I think from 396 or 395, all the way up to 3925 or 26, out of all those prayers, the last 4 prayers, Brahma is crystallizing what he feels actually. So it's very nice to understand how he understands that. In the prayer of 3922, Brahma says, that I'm praying that I be given the power of introspection. Brahma says, I am praying that I am empowered by introspection. Why does he want introspection? He wants the introspection to create, because he says, I'm also one of the surrendered souls to the Lord. So this is our first prayer to Krishna. Whenever we are taking up a task, we should pray that Krishna, please empower me. We should not think that we are the source of our achievements. Our prayer should begin by saying that Krishna, please empower me. And how are we empowered? We are empowered when we introspect. Introspect means we don't look outside, but we look inward. Inward means we don't find fault with those things that are outside, but we look inside and understand what our faults are and what are the barriers between us and our devotional service. This is what Brahma meant by introspection. In the word to word, it is anusprishata. That is what it means. It means that you look within, you see. It is an important quality for devotees, because in material conditioning, we are always prone to look outward. But very seldom we look to ourselves actually. We find so much fault with everyone. We criticize everyone. We look to others, to find everything which is not good. But hardly we look at ourselves actually. So Brahma actually, as the only living being, had no one to look at. His job in one sense was easier. Nobody else to find fault with, nobody else to criticize. But even then he was praying, please give me introspection. Why? Because he says, I'm also one of the surrendered souls to you. Brahma does not want to be counted as a person away from Krishna. He did not want to be seen as special. He wanted to let Krishna know that, Krishna, I'm just like everybody else. I'm also trying to surrender to you. This is the mood of a devotee. Devotee does not feel that he or she is special, but they feel like they are just like everybody else. We are all struggling. And this is the first mood of Brahma. So you can see in that prayer how much of humility Brahma has actually. He's not saying that he's empowered, but he's asking to be empowered. There's a difference. In the next prayer, Brahma says, that I pray only to be engaged in your service. This is the next prayer he says. These are the last 4, so they're very important. The next point he says is, I pray to be engaged in your service, to create this world. But as I'm creating this world, I'm praying not to be materially affected. This is a very important point. Why? He doesn't want to be materially affected by the service he's taking up. It's very easy for us to take up a service and we become affected by it from a material point of view. That doesn't help us actually. When we start looking at services from a material point of view, then we forget to see it with spiritual lenses. Brahma said, I don't want my work to materially affect me. Why? Because if I am materially affected, then I will then become falsely proud. So that is why in the second prayer, Brahma is saying that make me devoid of false sense of prestige. This is a very important point. He doesn't want to be involved in a sense of false prestige. Why is this important? Because devotees should always feel that false prestige is a big barrier between us and devotional service. It's a big barrier. And when we have false prestige, thinking that I am the creator, I am so and so, I am this, I am that, we will lose the empowerment that Krishna gives us actually. So this is the second thing we have to be careful. The third thing Brahmaji says is that I pray that in the course of my material creation and activities, somehow or another, I will not be deviated. Deviated from what? From the vibrations of the Vedic hymns. The vibrations of the Vedic hymns means I do not become deviated from Srimad Bhagavatam. Because Brahma heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Krishna. Do not forget that Brahma is one of the first persons, if not the first persons, to hear Bhagavatam actually. So his prayer is, while I'm doing all this service, let me not be deviated from the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is what the Vedic hymns actually mean. So we also should be very careful that while we perform a lot of services, our services must be rooted in serious study of our scriptures. They must be rooted in sadhana. Without sadhana, our services become just social work, and that is very dangerous. And in the last verse, the one before this, he then says very nicely that I pray that after all that I've prayed to him, I pray that all that I've asked for in terms of creation and creative impetus, I pray that Krishna will bestow all this on me. But more important than that, he prays that Krishna will smilingly bestow it on me. In other words, he's saying that Krishna, please smile upon me, because the smile of the Lord is the mercy of the Lord. You know, sometimes in devotional service, we all come here because we have very harsh conditions of material life outside. And then you come to the temple and you see devotees and they don't smile at you. It's very difficult, you know. When you come to temple and you see devotees being harsh with you or trying to be very, very, very strict with you, you know, they become more yogis than devotees. Then it's very difficult, you see, because we all are looking for soft corners. But sometimes devotees, in the name of detachment, it's very difficult for them to even encourage someone. They don't want to, you know, they are very aloof. But that is not the way of devotional service. Anyone who has read Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita will realize Prabhupada was anything but aloof. Your spiritual masters are anything but aloof. So that's what Brahma is very feelingly saying, at least smile at me, Krishna. If you smile at me and your smile is bestowed on me, I'll be very happy. That's all. Sometimes just smiling at a person can change so much about their devotional service. Because people come to us in the mode of anxiety. And if we cannot even smile at them, you know, then the anxiety increases actually. So these are the 4 prayers of Brahma which are really important. And now in this prayer, he's saying very nicely, in this, Maitreya now speaks. So when you see these 4 prayers, of course these are crystallized prayers of all the prayers that he spoke. The important thing that Brahma is saying in all of these 4 is very importantly that I am not the doer. This is what he's saying. He's asking for empowerment. He's saying that everything is coming from Krishna. He's basically saying that we are foolish if we think that we are the doers. What is that verse? 3rd canto, Bhagavad Gita, 3:27. Prakate kriyamanani, right? Prakate kriyamanani, gunai karmani sarvasaha, ahankara vimudatma, kartaham iti manyate. So this verse is an important verse. Because we hear about it so much in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about it strongly. It is something we hear in Bhagavatam. But this is what Brahma is asking. Because Brahma in essence is saying that if left to my own devices, I am myself am bewildered by the influence of the 3 modes of nature. We will understand in a while how Brahma, when he was born, he became bewildered actually. Prakate kriyamanani. Because it is very easy to be bewildered by the material modes of nature. Unfortunately, the person who performs an activity, they actually think that they are doing the activity and they are responsible for the success of the activity. Failure, they are not responsible. Failure is Krishna's business. But success is mine. This is how we normally think. If something is very good, then it is my credit. But something is not good, providential arrangement, karmas, samskars, and somebody else. And in this way, the doer becomes bewildered by material nature. So Brahma is showing us that actually nothing is in our hands. Nothing is in our hands. We are really nimitta matra bhavya savya sachi. Until Krishna empowers us, until devotees empower us, until spiritual master empowers us, we cannot do anything. It's another verse. In 1:1346 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Yudhishthir Maharaj was so worried about where Dhritarashtra had gone. He didn't know that Vidura had come and preached to Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra had left. He had left now, and he had left for good. But when Yudhishthir Maharaj woke up in the morning, he looked around and he saw no Dhritarashtra, no Gandhari. So he became very sad and anxious. What will happen to them? Where will they go? How will they survive? Like that, we are always worried about those whom we think are dependent on us. Will they be okay? Will they be okay? So at that point of time, Narada Muni came. And when Narada Muni came, Yudhishthir Maharaj presented his anxiety to Narada Muni. And when he presented it, Narada Muni told him something very nice. Kala, karma, gunadino, dehoyam pancha bhautikaha. So he's saying, Kala. Kala means time. Karma means activities or action. And gunaha means the modes of material nature or the modes of action. He's saying all these three actually, right, are not within our controls. Isn't it? We cannot control time. We can't. We cannot control what our previous actions and reactions are coming. That's why we are suffering. We can't. And we cannot control the modes of material nature. All these three we cannot. And all of them act on the body. Deho ayam. They act on the body. And they act on the body, which in itself, pancha bhautikaha, is already within the jaws of material nature. So if the body itself is caught up by the material modes of nature, how can the body, which is caught in the jaws of the serpent, right? It is caught by the jaws, sarpa grasto, already caught by the jaws of the serpent. What makes you think that you can protect Dhritarashtra? You yourself cannot protect yourself. How can you protect Dhritarashtra? You can't. So this is our fallacy. We think we can protect someone, but we can't even protect ourselves. We think we can protect our children, but we can't protect ourselves. That is the point we must understand. So Brahma, after all these prayers, he came to understand that. He came to understand that. Arjuna also understood this point. In the first canto, 15th chapter, he's remembering so much about Krishna, and he's remembering the war. He's remembering how difficult it was in the war and how much he misses Krishna. And in the first canto, 15th chapter, in the 21st verse, he then remembers something very, very wonderful. Tadvai danusta ishavasa rato hayaste soham rati nripataya yata anamanti sarvam shanena tadabud asa ishariktam bhasman hutam kuhokaradam ivoktamusyam. In this shloka, Arjuna says very nicely this point. He says that right now, even as I'm speaking to you, Yudhishthir Maharaj, I have the same Gandiva bow. He has the same Gandiva bow that he had during the time of the war, battlefield of Kurukshetra. I have the same arrows that were shooting out at all the different people that he was killing. So same Gandiva bow, same arrow. I'm riding the same chariot. The same chariot was being driven. My horses, by the way, survived the war, so they are the same horses also. They are there also. And I use them in the same way as the same Arjuna to whom all the kings were offering due respect. But in your absence, now that Krishna has left the world, Krishna has gone back, in your absence, at a moment's notice, just at a moment's notice, the moment Krishna wound up his activities, the moment the outcome of the battlefield of Kurukshetra was finished, he said, the Gandiva bow, his arrows, his chariot, his horses, all of this have become null and void. In other words, they are ineffective. Ineffective. Arjuna was not the same Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra as he was after the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He could not even defend the cowherds, right, from the infidels. He could not. He could not defend the gopis from the infidels. This is not to show that Arjuna was weak, but it is to show that Arjuna's powers are coming from Krishna. And that after Krishna has done whatever he has to do, after he has dispensed with what is needed, then whatever powers that we have, it will go. So even if we are giving class, or if we are able to sing, when one day comes when we cannot do that, we must understand that Krishna has withdrawn that power. He has withdrawn that power. Not on account of anything else, but because he is the actual doer, not us. So Brahma understood his precarious situation. This is the important point. This is why Maitreya said he understood who he was, and he understood that the source of his own appearance is actually Krishna. It is actually the personality of Godhead. This is a very important point for us to understand. So Brahma's prayers here, Prabhupada writes in the purport, in today's purport, and when you look at the purport and at the translation, is actually that one important point we must understand is Brahma's entire prayers, right, were actually his way of surrendering to Krishna. It is also his way of observing from where he had originated. When we pray to Krishna, we are actually observing who is the cause of who we are. Sarva Karana Karanam. Very often when we pray, we don't catch this point. We hardly catch this point actually. Very often when we pray, we never understand that the purpose of our prayer is to understand the source of our appearance. Most of the time, we are praying because we are desperate. I need this, I need this, I need this. But never do we think, who is the source of our appearance? We don't go back to that. We don't understand the importance of Sarva Karana Karanam. And we don't understand that whatever actions we perform, whatever that we have achieved, whatever outcomes we gain, it is all coming from Otam and Protam. It is actually coming from Krishna. So now Maitreya points out, whatever prayers that Brahma was able to muster, he was able to muster only because of what? Only because of his penance. You can see the word here, tapaha. What did he put in? He put in tapaha. He put in a lot of penance. Then he also put in vidya. He put in a lot of knowledge. That knowledge is self-knowledge. It is coming from his prayers. In other words, his prayers gave him knowledge. So when we pray to Krishna, whatever knowledge that we don't have, Krishna gives us the knowledge. So Brahma was equipped with penance, he was equipped with vidya, knowledge, and he concentrated his mind, samadhibihi. He concentrated his mind very much on Krishna. So if we don't concentrate our mind on Krishna, then it is very difficult for us to understand the source of our creation. That is why mantra is needed. Man means mind, and tra means resting place. In a lecture, Prabhupada used the word tra to mean deliverance. In other words, you can deliver the mind by actually performing devotional service. This is very important. One can deliver the mind by performing devotional service. So that is what Brahma did. He did all of this. And how did he do this? By using his vachaha, his words, by using his mind, until he became so tired that he could not do anything else. And Prabhupada writes here that he translates here, he became silent because that was as much as he could go. You see the word permit him? Brahma could not go beyond certain things. You know, when you want to go to some place, you need a permit, isn't it? Permit means up to here you can come. Beyond here you can't come. So his mind, his words were very powerful, but there was a limit to them. And beyond that he could not go. Beyond that he could only be permitted to go if Krishna gave him his mercy. Otherwise it's not possible. In other words, Brahma really had to pray very hard for Krishna's mercy, because without Krishna's mercy it was not possible. You will remember that when Brahma was born into this world, you will realize that when he was born, all he saw actually was darkness around him, right? There was only darkness. The only thing in the world at that time was just Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. There was no one else in this world. And then from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu came that lotus flower. And in that lotus flower, the Lord created all the ingredients of material nature. And He agitated the material ingredients of material nature such that from that flower originated the first being ever to come. And that was Brahma. And when Brahma was born from the hall of the lotus flower, Bhagavatam tells us he could not see the world. He couldn't see the world. From where he sat, he just could not see the world. Even though he was situated in it, he could not see it, Bhagavatam tells us. Why? He did not have the eyes to see it yet. We may see the world now, but we do not see it as it should be, because we don't have the eyes to see. So what did he do? He circumambulated all of space, Bhagavatam tells us. All of space he moved around. And while moving his eyes in all the directions, Brahma got 4 heads. He got 3 other heads. Because the first head was there, and then he turned right and he got another head. He turned left, he got another head. And he turned behind, and he also got another head. So in this creation, Brahma turned 3 times. But in other creations, Brahma has many heads. So Brahma must be turning more times. But at least for this purpose, right, Bhagavatam tells us he turned his head and he saw that there was nothing he could understand in all the 4 directions. So then what did Brahma do? He could not perfectly understand the creation, he could not understand the lotus, and he could not understand himself. And at the end of the millennium, Bhagavatam tells us in the 8th canto, all this is in the 8th canto, at the end of the millennium, while Brahma was sitting there, all he saw was the waves of the water, the air. They were all devastating this entire world. It was so powerful. The air and the water was making the waves into great circular motions. Brahma became very afraid because he didn't know what was happening. Brahma also became perplexed, Bhagavatam tells us. Now, in his ignorance, Prabhupada writes in the purports of the 3rd canto, 8th chapter, in his ignorance, Brahma asked an important question. He asked this question, who am I and where am I situated? Am I situated at the top of this lotus, and for what? Where have I come from? Where has this lotus come from? Now, when we are in ignorance and we ask these questions, this is the beginning of our devotional service. This is the beginning of Aham Brahmasmi. This is the beginning of what Prabhupada writes is self-enquiry. Then Brahma thought, there must be something downward because I'm sitting on something. When I look down, there's something that's going down. There must be something downward, he thought. And then he said, from there only the lotus must have grown, isn't it? So in that way, while he was contemplating, Brahma decided, let me enter the water through the channel of that stem of the lotus. And in that way, I will find out what is the source of who I am. And so, up to the point of inquiry, Brahma was all right. But after his inquiry, he transformed his inquiry into what we call personal endeavor. He personally endeavored. And he tried very hard. He went down and down and down and down. And while he was going down and down and down, he reached the end. And even when he reached his end, right, he could not find the end. He reached the end of his ultimate time, Bhagavatam said, but he did not reach the end of the lotus. There was no end to it. So after trying so hard on his own, Brahmaji decided, what happens now? I don't know what to do. And because he could not find it, right, he decided, let me come up again back to the lotus. That's all he could do. And when he came up, right, he realized then that he could not understand where he was coming from. With his own endeavor, he could not understand where he was coming from and who he was. So he decided, better I now control my objectives. That means what? Prabhupada writes this word, controlling your objective. It means first his aim was to go and find the bottom. But now his aim was different. His aim now was to find out, where have I come from? Instead of just endeavoring, he decided, let me seek help from the person who has created me. There is a slight but very important difference in this inquiry. When we think that we are the source of who we are, by dint of our self-endeavor, we will become frustrated. That's what happened to Brahma. And Brahma's frustration is not something we don't know. We are all frustrated actually. Whenever we try performing devotional service thinking I can rely on myself, we'll become frustrated. You try doing some word jugglery, some philosophical speculation with some part of Bhagavatam, you become very confused. It will look as if Bhagavatam is confusing you, but you're confusing yourself, you see. But Brahma learned it the hard way. He had no one to teach him. He was the only living being. So he decided, I will control my objective. And he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. Did he know who the Supreme Lord was? He didn't. But he knew that there was a Supreme Source. And that source must be higher than him. And in that way, he entered into Samadhi. He entered into Samadhi. And Bhagavatam tells us, this Samadhi is very important. Prabhupada writes in that purport, that concentration of the mind is the most important form of devotional service. It is certainly a form of devotional service. And Prabhupada says that to cease from personal sense endeavor and to concentrate on the supreme cause is actually a sign of self-surrender. This is very important. The purport is in, I think, the 21st verse of the 8th chapter of the 3rd canto, 3.8.21. Prabhupada is advising us here, your endeavors are very important, but if you concentrate on the supreme cause, that is a better endeavor. Instead of you trying to find out who I am, better you concentrate on the supreme cause. That is self-surrender. And Prabhupada says, when self-surrender is present, it is a sure sign of devotional service. See that important point. When self-surrender is present, then you can be assured there is devotional service. Until surrender of the self is there, there is actually no devotional service. And Prabhupada ends there by advising all of us, each and every living entity needs to engage in devotional service to the Lord if he wishes to understand the ultimate cause of his existence. See? That is why Brahma decided, enough of my own endeavor. So our inquiry is important. Our endeavor in inquiry is important. But after that, we must take up the position of surrendering to Krishna and then execute devotional service. So like that, Brahma sat down for 100 of his years. And he heard that beautiful wording from Krishna as he sat down to concentrate. Tapa, tapa, tapa. And tapa means to perform austerity. And so he performed austerity. Bhagavatam class in the morning is great austerity. It is great austerity. Because we all know how tired we are for the whole week. Saturday night is easy. Because Saturday night, end of the week, you come here, you hear nice kirtan, prasadam, you're still awake, then you go and sleep. But Sunday morning, that's an austerity. It's very difficult. And everyone is tired. I can see from your faces, you're all very tired actually. You're just struggling to stay awake. But this is your austerity. You're doing it for Krishna. You're doing it for Krishna. So even though you may be like that and like this, it's all right. It's all right. Because we are trying it for Krishna. Brahmaji was not perfect, but for 100 years he tried. Krishna only wants endeavor. Krishna doesn't want perfection. Endeavor is your purity. Perfection is his to give. This you must remember. Endeavor is your purity. The more we endeavor, the more we become purified. Endeavor is your austerity. But perfection of what you do is his to give you. This is a very important point. And that is why Brahma is teaching us. And so after 100 years, Bhagavatam tells us, when his meditation was complete, when his knowledge was developed, then as a result of that, what happened? Brahma could see in his heart the Supreme within himself. He could see Krishna within himself. Before he began his prayers, Krishna revealed himself to him. See? Because of his tapa, because of his concentration, samadhi, because of his vidya. He worked so hard to remember Krishna. And Krishna as Chaitya Guru, as the spiritual master from within, he appeared in the heart of Brahma. And when he appeared within the heart of Brahma, then what happened? Then only Brahma could then become surcharged with the mode of passion. Jai Jagannath ki. In text 33 of Bhagavatam, in the 8th canto, Bhagavatam tells us, after so much of endeavor, Brahma finally could see Krishna within. He could see the beautiful form of Krishna. He could see Krishna as Krishna was and as Krishna is. And after seeing Krishna so nicely, what happened? Brahma became surcharged with the mode of passion. That's not a bad thing, because Brahma needs passion to create. Right? In the mode of passion, one can create something. You need passion to create something. So passion itself is not wrong. But when you're not passionate about Krishna, then it's a problem. You must use passion like Brahma used passion for Krishna. So he became inclined then to create. And when he saw that all the five organs, all the five ingredients were ready, and everything was ready for him to create, at that point of time, did he create? No, he didn't create. He didn't create. At that point of time, what did he do? He offered prayers. He offered prayers. Why do devotees do that? They already see Krishna in the heart. They are ready to create. Why do they then at that moment start long prayers? Because the long prayers are meant to keep them on the ground. To keep them on the ground. Otherwise, they will be in the sky. This is very important. Did anyone else do this in Bhagavatam? Yes. Arjuna did this. When Brahmastra was coming at Arjuna, and he could easily, have shot Brahmastra weapon to kill, to counteract, and then to kill Ashwatthama, what did he do? He stopped everything. He circumambulated Krishna. He did Achaman. And then, instead of shooting the Brahmastra, he chanted, Krishna, Krishna Mahabaho, Bhaktanam Abhayankaraha, Tvammeko Dhayyamananam, Apavargosi Samstritehe. You see, like that 4 prayers he chanted. But because, his was emergency, he stopped at 4 prayers. And then he shot Brahmastra. But I suppose Brahmaji had plenty of time because nobody was born yet, isn't it? Everybody's sleeping. Nobody's saying, Prabhu, this is urgent, that is urgent. Brahma, nobody was pushing Brahma. So he had plenty of time now. All his prayers he could chant. But this is what we call the modus operandi. Every time we want to perform something, we should understand the way to perform it is actually this way. This is the way to perform Krishna. That is why, what is that? What is that verse? Brahma is situated in the heart, Brahma Adi Kavaye, right? In the first canto, first chapter, first verse, it is stated, right? Brahma Adi Kavaye, right? That is the shloka. I forget how it starts actually. Yeah, Brahma Adi Kavaye. So this is very important. Why is it important? Because in the translation, it is stated nicely that he appeared in the heart of Brahma. And only because he appeared in the heart of Brahma could Brahma actually begin to create. This is very important. Very, very important point. If we don't understand this point, then we will think that Brahma could create because of his own creation. It is not true. Brahma could create because it is actually he, as in Krishna, he imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, because he is the original living being. Very important point. That is why in this shloka, you find that Brahma began to start his prayers. That is why after we speak here, Brahma begins to chant. And after all his chanting, he is very tired, and now he has stopped. So during all his chanting, while he was chanting the Brahma's prayers that we have gone through and we have finished, what happened to his heart? This is an important point. In the second canto of Bhagavatam, 8th chapter, I think it's the 5th or the 6th shloka. What happens to us when we chant Krishna's names or we chant prayers to Krishna is very nicely given. In 285, I think, it is nicely stated, Pravishtaha Karna Randrenaha. In other words, for those of us who are chanting the prayers dedicated to Krishna, Krishna enters through the ears. As we hear the prayers, just like Brahma was hearing prayers, Krishna will enter. Pravishtaha means to enter. Karna Randrena means through the whole of the ears. So Bhagavatam tells us, Pravishtaha Karna Randrena Swanam Bhavam Saroruham. In other words, once Bhagavatam enters into the ears of the devotee, it actually then enters into the heart of that self-realized devotee. And it sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship. How nice this point is. That is what Krishna did. And that is what Krishna does to every one of us, Prabhus and Matajis, when we accept Krishna as Chaitya Guru in our heart. The moment you hear Bhagavatam, Pravishta Karna Randrena, Swanam Bhava Saroruram, Dhunoti Shamalam Krishnaha, what is that? Salilasya Yatha Sharat. Just like the autumn rains come, and they clean away all the dust of summer. In the same way, the Lord Himself comes in the loving incarnation of Srimad Bhagavatam, and He enters into our hearts through the years, and He sits inside. So when Brahma started to chant the prayers, Krishna entered into his heart. He was there as Garbhodakashai Vishnu, but he entered into the heart of Brahma. And when he entered into the heart of Brahma, he gave him self-realization. That is the point when Brahma became self-realized. Not at the point when he was doing the prayers. The prayers qualified him to become self-realized. You see the point? The prayers qualify us to become self-realized. That is why we chant the prayers. And when he became self-realized at that point, Krishna became transcendental vacuum cleaner. And he cleansed the heart of Brahma of the dirt of what we call lust, anger and hankering. So if we are hankering after material things, if we are lusty after so many material objects, if we are still prone to becoming angry, we can understand that there's still a lot of dirt in the heart. And somehow or another, Krishna hasn't seated himself on the lotus flower of our loving relationship. Because if he had, he would have cleansed it already. He hasn't done that yet. Why? Not his fault. We haven't heard Bhagavatam well enough. We haven't heard Bhagavatam in the way Brahma prayed in the 4 seed verses. Let me introspect. Let me not be affected. Let me not be deviated. And let me be devoid of a sense of false prestige. That is why Brahma qualified himself. You see that? So it may appear like a very simple thing. Oh, Brahmaji sat down, he went down, he couldn't find something, then he just came up, then he prayed, and then Krishna gave him the power. It is a science. It is really a science. And that's why Prabhupada, in the purport, Prabhupada says so nicely that Brahma could not turn to anyone because there was no one else there. So no spiritual master to turn to. What happens? We turn to Krishna, because Krishna is Chaitya Guru. He is the representation within, and all our spiritual masters are his representation externally. Srila Prabhupada is a representation of Krishna as spiritual master. All our spiritual masters are representations of Krishna, because through them we become self-realized. Through them we learn to study Bhagavatam. Through them we can come to the point of how Brahma came. But the platform is, we must work hard. There must be endeavor. There must be tapas. Look at all of you. So much of tapa just to sit here today. There must be tapaha. There must be knowledge. Bhagavatam, Prabhupada is giving us vidya. We must give ourselves tapaha. With tapaha, with vidya, it is not enough. There must still be the element of Bhagavatam. No, I'm sorry, there must be the element of bhakti. Without the element of bhakti, it is very hard, very, very hard. This is very, very important. We can do so much of austerity, but Bhagavatam tells us that without devotional service, we cannot come to Krishna. That is why Prabhupada says emphatically that it is devotional service that will bring us to Krishna. You know, when Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, he says this very nice point in 11th canto, 14th chapter, 22nd verse, 11, 14, 22. And sometimes this verse is very much needed for us, because Brahmaji had the same problem, and we also have the same problem. Krishna is telling Uddhava, Dharma Satya Daya Peto. Dharma means you may have very good religious principles. You know, sometimes we are very pakka, how to sit, how to do achaman, we must do this and we must do that. All this, we are very pakka. When we came to Krishna consciousness in the earlier days, many devotees will tell you that when you want to take flowers or when you want to take offerings and all, nobody will tell you to do achaman here, achaman there, achaman everywhere. You just take what is being offered. The principle is that what is being offered from Krishna, right, is actually pure. You do not have to purify yourself to take what has been given. It is already pure. These are what we call religious principles. When you are going to take flowers to offer to the spiritual master, you are impure, and the flowers are being taken to give it at his lotus feet. There is no requirement for achaman. And yet we go around telling everyone you have to do achaman. These are all religious principles we have added into our movement. It is not necessary. It is not even necessary. It's not even recommended. If you ask the senior devotees, they'll tell you, why are you complicating things? You don't have to complicate things. But we complicate so many things. This must be this way, the cup cannot be here, this cannot be there. Why? So these religious principles, they become more important than other things. This is very important for us. We get very caught up with this. We like these things, you see. We like that we have a Brahmana thread. We like that we have a lot of mantras. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra we don't want to chant. But other mantras we are very excited to chant. Why? So these are what we call dharmaha. We get caught up in all these things. Then satya. Satya means truthfulness, very important quality to have. Then daya. Daya means mercy, also very important to have. Upeta means endowed. So even though we are endowed with religious principles, even though we are endowed with honesty, even though we are endowed with mercy, even though we have knowledge, all of this, Krishna says, even if you do it with great endeavor and tapaha, Krishna tells us, vidya va tapasan vitaha mad bhaktya petam. The infusion of bhakti, if it's not there, na samyak prapunati va. In other words, if you do not have bhakti, then it cannot purify one's consciousness totally. Without bhakti, it cannot. So if we are bereft of loving service, then no matter how pakka we are in all these things, it is still discounted by Krishna. Still discounted by Krishna. Sukracharya was much more expert in all this than Bali Maharaj. But ultimately, Krishna gave mercy to Bali Maharaj. He didn't give mercy to Sukracharya. Because Sukracharya had all these ingredients, but he missed bhakti. This is the important thing for us to remember. Durvasa Muni had all these ingredients, but Ambrish Maharaj had bhakti. That's why Durvasa was in trouble and Ambrish was very relaxed. You see the point? So without bhakti, everything becomes it pales in comparison. That is why Prabhupada puts devotional service as supreme. That's why we have to do it. And remember, even if you have bhakti, it is very nicely stated. You go to 10 canto, 13 chapter, 54th verse. In 10, 13, 54, this is Srila Prabhupada's purports. Even if we are very good in what we are doing, even then, we depend on the mercy of Krishna. Because in that purport, Prabhupada says, he quotes, one of the Upanishads, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyam, Na Medasa Na Bahuna Shrutena, Yam Evaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas, Tasyeva Atma Vivrinute Tanum Swam. And this is a very startling verse, because there it is stated, the Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanations, not obtained by vast intelligence, or even by much hearing. He is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he will manifest his own form. So if you think, I have now clocked, 100 hours of hearing, Krishna has to appear before me. I've studied Bhagavatam 14 times. Every year I studied one time. And then 14 years I've done Bhagavatam. No. It doesn't mean Krishna will come. If I've ticked off all the boxes, now Krishna has to appear before me. No, he will not come. If you tick off all the boxes for a Devata, he will have to appear. Brahmaji has to appear. Indra has to appear. Lord Shiva had to appear. But Krishna doesn't have to appear. Krishna will say, well, it's up to me. I will choose someone. He will choose. That is why Brahma is praying so hard. Now we understand why he prays so hard. And that is why Prabhupada ends the purport by saying that without Krishna as Chaitya Guru in the heart, Brahma could not be guided even to this position. Because he went down on his own. Then he became frustrated. Then he came up. Then he decided, I must sit down and I must find the source of all sources. At that point, Krishna said, tapaha, tapaha. That was Chaitya Guru giving instruction. This is what you must do. This is what you must do. Sometimes we are also guided by Chaitya Guru in our hearts, isn't it? When we know something is not right, that is Chaitya Guru speaking. That is your Guru speaking. Doesn't have to be external, but Krishna is guiding you. If we pray very hard, Krishna, please give me a spiritual master whom I can surrender to, he will give it to you. But you cannot say in 6 months you have to give it to me, by the way, Krishna. It won't happen that way. If he wants 6 years, it will take 6 years. But that's Chaitya Guru. You have to hear Chaitya Guru. That is why in the purport of 4:28-41 of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we end with this point of Chaitya Guru, Prabhupada writes so nicely that the Lord is the super soul and he is seated in everyone's heart and he acts as Chaitya Guru. He is the spiritual master within. However, he gives direct instructions only to the advanced pure devotees. We feel bad, isn't it? Oh, that means, only advanced pure devotee will get instructions. But read on. In the beginning, when a devotee is serious and sincere, the Lord gives him directions from within. Hey, wait a minute. Prabhupada just said before that, only advanced pure devotees. Then he says in the beginning, when a devotee is serious and sincere, Krishna is already giving him directions. How is that? How is that? Very simple. I read this and I asked my Guru Maharaj, so advanced and pure, but then Prabhupada immediately says after that, if someone is sincere and if someone is serious. And my Guru Maharaj said, purity is defined by your sincerity and your seriousness. That is purity. That is purity. So we always think, purity is something we cannot achieve. Oh, it's gone, it's out of the way. I'll just give up devotional service. No. As long as you're serious, as long as you're sincere, you are pure. We are thinking in terms of perfection. In material world, we think perfect means pure. No, you don't have to be perfect, but you can be pure. Prabhupada said something very nice. In one lecture or one letter, Prabhupada says, supposing I'm expert in something and you are an apprentice. You all know what an apprentice is, right? Apprentice is someone learning from the master. The master is very expert, but he gives instructions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you follow. The apprentice is nowhere near the quality of the master. But Prabhupada says if he follows exactly what the master tells him, he is considered pure. He is considered pure. So in material world, we think, oh, he's not perfect yet. But in spiritual world, this is purity. So we understand from here that Krishna will give direct instructions. He will. We should be encouraged. As long as we are serious about him and as long as we are sincere about him, he will give the direction from within to approach a bona fide spiritual master. Then what happens? You become trained. When one is trained by the bona fide spiritual master, according to the regulative principles of devotional service, and is situated on the platform of spontaneous attachment for the Lord, Raga Bhakti, then the Lord also gives instruction from within. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. And Prabhupada says here, the distinct advantage is obtained by a liberated soul. So you see, actually this is what Chaitya Guru does. So what do we learn today? The most important qualification that Brahma had, if you take from Bhagavatam, is that he was serious and he was sincere. He was very serious, he was sincere. Because he had these two qualifications, he was pure in his heart. And Krishna revealed to him, you perform penance. And then he performed penance. Then Krishna gave him vidya, tesham sadata yuktanam. He revealed to him what he wanted. And once he revealed to him what he wanted, then the result was Brahma got the right knowledge. And in the 3rd canto, 10th chapter, Brahma will start his creation. He will start his creation. So from all this, we understand one thing. Personal self-endeavor is very important, but it is not enough for us to come to Krishna. We still need Krishna's mercy. That is one point to understand. Second point, we must not stop inquiring about the nature of Krishna. Please, never think 10 years I'm devotee, I know the nature of Krishna. No. Keep going back. Become a worm in Bhagavatam to understand the nature of Krishna. This is very important. Because then only that inquiry will invoke his mercy. It will invoke his mercy. 1st canto, 3rd chapter, 39 shloka. This is the evidence for what we have just spoken now. Very, very nice point. Ateha dhanya Bhagavantamittam yadva sudeve akila lokanate kurvanti sarvad makamadma bhavam na yatra bhuya parivarta ugraha. See the translation. We can read it together. Only by making such enquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such enquiries invoke transcendental, ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes, and guarantees 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. So you see, always inquiring about the nature of Krishna will invoke his mercy. It will invoke his mercy. That's why when you read Bhagavatam, please remember, seriously inquire about the nature of Krishna. Please keep inquiring, Krishna, what is your nature? Kindly give me an understanding of your nature. This is the meaning of self-inquiry. By understanding Krishna, we will understand ourselves. By understanding ourselves, we may not understand Krishna, because Krishna is the source. It's very important. And the third conclusion today is this very important point, that no matter how much tapas you have, no matter how much vidya you have, no matter how much hearing you may do and devotional service you may do, finally, right, you must do it as a devotee. We can do devotional service mechanically, but we may not be devotional. This is a very important point. There's a difference, I'm a devotee, but I may not be devotional. It is very different. So that is why whatever value we have in this world, until we become devotees, it's in the 10th canto, Brahmaji is chanting the prayers, 10th canto, 14th chapter. Tavat ragadaya tavat karagraham graham, tavan moha angri nigada, yavad krishna nate janaha. I'll find the thing. It is 10th canto, 14th chapter. But the translation is very nice. In the translation, it is nicely stated. The devotees, Vrindavan residents are saying, my dear Lord Sri Krishna, when people become your devotees, until they become your devotees, then three things will happen. Their material attachments and desires, they will remain as thieves. Did you find it, bro? Oh, you did, huh? Okay. Yeah. What verse is it? 10? 14? Okay, then don't worry. Until people become your devotees, their material attachment and desires will remain as thieves. In other words, they will steal us away. The next point is, our homes, which are very cushy and very nice, they will remain as prisons. And all our affectionate feelings for our family members, and we have a lot of affection for our family members, what will that be? They will remain shackles on our foot, actually. So we are prisoners. So we may have family, but without Krishna, it is actually shackles. We may have nice house, and our house will look very nice, but without Krishna, they are prisons. And at the end of the day, whatever attachments and desires we have, if we don't channel them to Krishna, they are thieves, actually. So until we become devotees, all of this have no meaning. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Srila Gurudev ki, Ananta Kori Vaishnavinda ki, Jai Gaura Premanande. Are there any questions? I can take one or two. Yes, Umesh Prabhu.
You mentioned about that all our endeavors is not the end, we have to wait for Lord's mercy.
All our endeavors is not the end.
The only thing.
It's not the only thing, yes.
So we also hear that, and even if they say that as a devotee, we need to sincerely seek for Lord's mercy. But we also hear, Prabhu, that the two verses like Tulsi Jalamatrina, the Lord self himself, when he just offered in Tulsi. Or the second verse is Aham Bhakta Pranadino. So we also see that Lord is more than willing to just shower his mercy.
Yes.
So how do we understand Prabhu?
Yeah. See, Prabhu, the Lord is more than willing to shower his mercy, but the qualification to get his mercy is seriousness and surrender. That's why he could say Aham Bhakta Paradino, because look at the level of surrender Ambarish had. His surrender was so powerful, Prabhu, that the Lord would have been his maidservant. But I don't think the Lord would say Aham Bhakta Paradino if I was in trouble. Because I'm not sincere and serious like Ambarish Maharaj. So we must understand the context why the Lord says, my mercy is very merciful. He is merciful. He can turn anybody around anytime. But we cannot escape the fact that His mercy is attracted by something, some seriousness, some sincerity of the devotee. That is an important component. By the same time, the devotees who do these wonderful things, they don't hold Krishna and say, look, I did all this and now you must be merciful. Even after doing all that, they will say, even now, Krishna, you are free to do with me as you please. As Mahaprabhu says in the last Sikshashtakam prayer, right? You can embrace me, roughly, or you can be kind to me. But either way, you are still my Lord. This is the mood of a devotee that attracts Krishna's mercy. Ambarish Maharaj never expected that Krishna must come and defend him against Durvasa Muni. That is why Krishna came. If you expect Krishna to come, that's the time probably Krishna won't come. But if you don't expect Krishna to come, then Krishna will come. This is devotee, you see. Prahlad Maharaj did not pray to Krishna so much so that Krishna will come and save him from Hiranyakashipu. He was not worried about that. His worry was that Hiranyakashipu could not understand the greatness of Krishna. His worry was all the living entities could not understand the greatness of Krishna. He was not worried for himself. That's why Krishna came. That's why Krishna came. Is that helpful, Prabhu? Very good question. Yes, Dinotsa Prabhu.
Can we understand that the seriousness and the sincerity is already the mercy of Krishna?
Very good point.
Rather than saying that because I'm sincere and serious, therefore Krishna must be me.
Yeah. Now in a few verses coming up, right? This is a sneak preview that Dinotsa Prabhu just gave us. In the next few verses, 39, 38 or 37, right? Brahmaji is going to get the shock of his life because Krishna is going to tell him, I've got news for you. Your sadhana, your austerity, even your devotional service, it's all my mercy. So it's like, that means nothing is ours. To that extent, right? Everything is Krishna's mercy. Even our sincerity and seriousness is nicely cultivated by Krishna. Some independence is there, minute independence is there, but ultimately all the nice covering, the nice presentation, it's all coming from Krishna. It's all coming from Krishna. And through him as Chaitya Guru and through our spiritual masters as the external representation of the Supreme Lord. Is that all right, Sabu?